I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo Del Real, here with my partner, Mr. Nick Hodge, who's also an investor and the publisher of Daily Profit Cycle. This is the 274th episode of our weekly therapy session that we like to call Investing in Bizarro World. We're going to talk markets. We're going to talk what we're investing in. We're going to talk a little Biden, a little Trumpster, little G7 action, some phenomenal drill results out of what's shaping up to be a world-class gold project. But of course, first and foremost, before we get into all that, how are you, Senor Hodge?
Oh, you know, Gerardo, investing and publishing and investing. How are you doing?
It's kind of what we do, right? It's kind of what we do. Let's, well, it seems like everybody's got a stomach bug running through them, passing through them, or hugging to them. And so I hope everyone out there is well and healthy. My wife has been sick for several days now. It's been pretty rough. I know that you had a day that was not the funnest of days. Several of our colleagues and frankly, my sister and her entire family also have had a stomach bug running through them. So a lot going on out there as far as viruses and the like. But you know, it comes with the territory, I guess. Hopefully everyone stays healthy out there.
Changing of the seasons, and interesting how you get real-time feedback. You know, we have employees in multiple states, and we get together for staff meetings and stuff, and one person says they're sick. This week it was me in Washington, and then you got 2 or 3 other people say, oh yeah, there's something in Texas, and there's something in Maryland or whatever. So definitely virus going around the country right now. My mother-in-law came into town recently, and she too had a stomach bug. So it's out there, and bugs in the market, as it were, too, with pullbacks and countries having some volatility. So happy to talk about the markets, because there's a lot going on out there.
There's a lot going on. I know some of you care about us. I know most of you just care about the market. So let's get to the market. Last week we had a discussion about the commodity space and whether this precious metals correction was, you know, a buy the dip type of situation, or if it was the start of a bigger head fake. Look, we have gold now just above the 2,300 level. Gold has held that 2,300 level very well. It dipped below it here momentarily. Silver, however, not only did it not hold the 30 level, but it broke below the $29 level, currently trading right at $28.92 as of June the 13th post-market. Technically, again, I'm not the chartist of the two of us, but the chart tells me there's further downside to go in the silver space. I still think it's a buy the dip situation. I think it's a pullback within a broader bull market. I do think it's a pullback that can last the next month or two. I think it's a heck of an opportunity during the summer doldrums to add to those silver positions. I mentioned a name that I really like that I'm going to be likely adding to one of the paid services here in the not too distant future if the pullback continues as anticipated. But again, I want to be absolutely clear that come August, September, I think, you know, all of this is in the rear view mirror, and we're off to the races for new record highs. That's my crystal ball for you all. What do you see technically with the more educated opinion, Mr. Hodge?
You're pretty spot on there. We talked last week about the pullback and the causes of it, and I was talking about different countries. I was talking about that slowdown in China and Indian elections, and I was talking about Europe, and that's continued to play out. China has had continued softness. There's been some election issues with France, and then Europe has softened a little bit, but and that's giving some trepidation to, in turn, the commodities. You'll recall that one of the reasons I said copper was getting bullish was because of an opening of China, and so if these countries are going to slow, then the market needs to search for its next narrative for why the commodities are going to go up. That's pretty much verbatim what I said last week, if you go back and play the tape, and that continues to be what plays out now. So no matter what narrative the market comes up with next, it is a buy the dip moment now. It is a pullback inside a broader, bullish cycle, or however you want to frame that. What else do I want to say? Gold right at the bottom of its technical channel. Same with silver. Copper's a little firmer. Uranium is always shaking people out and making people go crazy, and that's not changed. But specifically with the precious metals, they are bullish, and what was I writing this week? I was writing that that they're bullish because the narratives, right? The head fakes and the hawk dove stuff is only, it has a shelf life now that's really, really reduced, right? Because it was just a couple of weeks ago when the jobs numbers was so robust that the Fed was going to have to hike rates, right? Or you're not going to get any cuts. And then a couple of weeks after that, you get a softening CPI, right? And now we're back to a cut on the table in September, or at least that's the narrative. But all the while, gold is going like this, but it's really in a long-term uptrend. So I said the same thing a couple of different ways there, but you're seeing softness in an uptrend, whether that's in gold or some of the other commodities. And I said the market would have to search for another narrative if it's not going to be, a growth in Asia and subcontinent India, et cetera. Well, I think that's going to be a continued inflation. It's going to be stagflation, right? Growth that's still positive, but not 3 or 4%. And inflation that just won't go again. I would caution you, dear reader, that the 0.0% headline inflation doesn't mean that inflation went away. It just means that it didn't go up anymore. It's still with us at the same rate it was the month before. And so anyway, those are my thoughts on the broader market. And I guess on the broader market, but we didn't say anything about the S&P and the NASDAQ, which continue to hit all-time highs with volatility subdued and is being driven by AI and tech stocks, specifically still NVIDIA and Microsoft and now Apple, which had a big investor day last week and is now telling its AI narrative. So the whole AI narrative continues to go. A few stocks continue to push around the market. I think I saw that. Sorry, I'm talking so much. That three stocks this week were responsible for almost 40% of the move in the S&P, for example. And also, for like the first time ever, there was call buying volume on individual stocks that was greater than the entire S&P. So like things like GameStop, for example, was having higher volume than like the entire fucking market. So just things not bizarre out there at all, Gerardo.
There's a lot of bizarre going on. I could go in so many directions, but anyhow, let me keep it to the markets. Yeah, long story short, look, by the dip could last a little bit longer than we anticipate. Jerome got out there and did what Jerome does. He basically said, hey, look, I don't need inflation data to be where we said we needed it to be because we always change our minds, but I do need it to be a little bit cooler. You'll likely get one rate cut. That's maybe likely all you'll get. I think there will be a lot of pressure for that rate cut. I think we get it before the end of the year. Would a second one surprise me depending on the data? No, because I always, don't underestimate the double talk of any institutional puppet as he is, right? And so we'll see what the markets dictate. I'll tell you what the markets are dictating that is really, really an outlier to me right now. And it speaks to gold's strength, the fact that it's still holding the 2,300 level. It's the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar closed today at 105.20. That's the U.S. dollar index. That's a heck of a move given where it was here recently, and that doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. I gotta believe some of that, and again, we talked about geopolitical turbulence, some of that has to be as a result of capital inflows from around the world as capital seeks safe harbor in an environment, right, where interest rates are elevated, and you can get, a pretty decent return on your capital in, for better or worse, and as crazy as this week has looked with both of our presidential candidates, it's still the cleanest dirty shirt in the laundry basket, as I like to call it, right? That's the U.S. dollar. Thoughts on the dollar? How's that chart look to you?
Not a lot of thoughts. That's a bullish chart, at least on the time frame I got up here. 5 days bullish, 1 month bullish, 3 month bullish, 6 months certainly bullish. And looking like, it's not going to break down. Even if it doesn't go up, it's going to consolidate right there at 105. So aircraft carriers, as it were. But also crypto. I was reading just cursory today, a tweet from Mr. Max Kaiser, who I'm sure you're aware of. He's got a heck of a personality. But anyway,
he does.
Talking about how U.S. Tether, USDT is, Tether's a stable coin that's based on the US dollar, but he was talking about crypto flows and how some of the flows into that stable coin, because, when flows come into that stable coin, they have to buy dollars because it's tethered, right? It's called Tether. was responsible for some of that, responsible for some of that dollar buying. Now, whether or not that the fundamental reason for that is because of what you outlined, demand for dollars because of geopolitical instability and uncertainty, that very well may be true. But I just thought it was interesting that, I never thought about the mechanism for the dollar buying being a stable coin like that before. And anyway, he's adamant about everything.
He is adamant about everything. Any thoughts on Jerome? Any thoughts on Jerome's press conference? Or I know you don't really much care about Jerome, and frankly, I don't either, except for, kind of like the cliff notes, right? Let me see what the market gathered from it. I care more about the reaction than what he actually says. So that's always interesting to me. But does he matter at this point? How relevant is he?
I mean, clearly prices are still going up. He's relevant as long as, the market still hangs on to his words, which they do, which is why you sort of got to do the Cliff Notes version. But again, just to recap the past 6 or 7 months, he goes on CNBC or he goes on 60 Minutes and says one thing, 30 or 45 days after he had an FOMC meeting where he said essentially the opposite thing, right? And the market sort of can't figure out what policy is going to do either, right? I was just saying that like a couple of weeks ago, we had a great jobs number and it was the Fed's going to have to raise rates. There's not going to be able to cut rates because the labor market is so strong and gold goes down to $100. And then, CPI is soft-ish and, now we are going to get one cut and, gold goes back up. The 2-year is what I'm looking at because indicative of Fed policy. I mean, over the past 6 months, this thing has gone up from 4.2 to 4.8. It has softened in the past month or so, but, relatively higher rates. And so I think you get higher for longer. I don't have comments on Jerome specifically. I'll tell you what the market did, right? So before Jerome opened up his mouth, 48% chance of a rate cut. After Jerome opened his mouth, 60% chance of a rate cut. And that's pretty much what I look at.
Imagine that, right? Imagine that. How's copper looking to you? 438, pretty much a sideways move here over the last week. It's bounced up, it's bounced down. It's kind of settling right around the 440 range. Given the
Copper
dollar
went to
strength.
five very fast. Sorry,
Sure.
what'd you say?
No. I was going to say, given the right kind of where you were going, given the recent price action and given that the dollar is at over 105, and given the fact that it rushed to 5, I think the pullback seems like a healthy consolidation if this is indeed a new floor, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got to digest those gains. So it was knocking on the $5 door. It touched it once, and then it ran right back to sort of that mid-4 level. I think it's going to want to consolidate or digest those gains before it makes another attempt at 5. You mentioned the dollar. I mentioned China again, right? If China's slowing, then the market's got to find, what that next thing is. And I'm not sure, is it, spreads, TCs on the refiners? Is it inventories? Is it another mine that goes offline? I'm not sure, but technically bullish and obviously fundamentally in the long term, lots of drivers there. And we've been talking about copper for a long time and are writing copper checks this month. So bullish on copper for sure.
No, look, and we had, a private placement seminar for what's now going to be, my largest single position in terms of shares and soon likely in terms of dollars, right? And the seminar, the webinar, I think went well. It's, it's a financing that's already oversubscribed. Luckily, we were able to get all of our subscribers their full allocations. I have a phone call right after this for friends and family to secure additional allocations. And I'm writing an aggressive check myself for this company. So I say that to say, that's essentially closed now. Everybody had an opportunity. I think it has Patriot-like potential, maybe more. If it's just half, I'll take it. At peak Patriot, I'll take half the performance of Patriot in 2 years. But the scale is absolutely there. The commodity mix with gold, copper, and silver is absolutely there. Underexplored. I could go on and on. Somebody in the comment section, I rarely do this, but I have been lately because I get a kick out of the comments.
I was going to ask you.
Yes, they asked about the infrastructure and if we could please outline it. And so what I'll say is this. The land packages, because it's multiple land packages, are so vast. And I plan on visiting in September. There's a site visit in September that we're organizing. And so I'll bring you some footage of that. But the land package is so vast that there's going to be many, many different types of deposits. And in a perfect world, in my mind, it's the reason I'm betting, the amount that I'm betting. there's going to be many company making deposits that are all different types of mineralization. I say that to say, within the 1,000+ square kilometer basin, some deposits we're going to be able to drive right to the juicy part. The stuff that's just coming out of the wall, outcropping from the floor. People say there's no more gold. There's no more gold copper projects just poking out of the ground. I'm going to go film a bunch, and we're going to show you the footage. There absolutely are. Now, you may not have been willing to stake the ground that this team was able to stake and hold it for as long as they did, and you may not have wanted to go into some of the parts in the jungle to create roads and pads like this team was willing to do. But the reward for that, I think, is going to be absolutely massive, because what they've found is absolutely mind-blowing to me. I was telling you off air, and this is public knowledge. This is in the public domain. They have soil samples for vast distances of mineralization of damn near cutoff grade, on the gold side of it. This is just the regions they've been able to get to. There's copper and gold oozing out of the ground. So the answer to that is some parts of this basin are infrastructure challenged only as it relates to some of its jungle. And it's a jungle that's, it's accessible, but it's high up, and you got to get in there, and you got to know how to work in the jungle. And fortunately, this team has been, in this country for a very, very long time, and it's why they're making the discoveries that they're making. Other parts, like I said, we're going to be able to just get in a car, drive from the main city a couple of hours, pull up, have some lunch, get in the car, drive another hour and a half, and walk right up to an outcrop just sticking out of the ground. So I'm really excited to bring that footage first to subscribers and then to you all, of course. And I love the questions. By all means, fire away with the questions. I think that was a great question. You should always ask about infrastructure. The other thing that I should note is permitting, in this part of the world has been slow as molasses the last couple of years. That is now accelerating, and there's an emphasis on making these exploration plans that this company has a focus point for, being a case study for future exploration. The country's getting it together, not just with this specific set of claims, but with other companies that are now starting to see permits come through in a more expedited basis. So couldn't be more excited. I think, we get to the juicy part of drilling, the stuff I really want to see, maybe later this year, definitely early next year, first quarter next year, hopefully at the latest. I have hopes for Q4 this year, but we'll keep you posted on that. And you'll all get to follow along. We'll share next week what the company is, why specifically we're so excited. I'll see if I can't get the chairman and CEO on here to chat about why this place is so special and just the amazing amount of work that went into securing the land package and how that came about. It's a fascinating story in and of itself, the background to it.
It's going to be a good trip once you set it up, and it'll be right around Beaver Creek time. So shaping up for an exciting fall.
It should be an exciting fall. Let's see where we land on the conference circuit. You never can tell these days, right? It's Beaver Creek. Absolutely. We got our invites, and I'm excited to get to Beaver Creek. We'll see what else materializes. There's always something to do. I can't continue before I get to Donald Trump and Joe Biden, your two leading presidential candidates of the United States. And it's hilarious because I'm already where I'm at. I'm already starting to see, the big trucks with the Trump flags. And when I drive to downtown Austin, I'm seeing the electric vehicles with, the cute stickers and the Biden and the Kamala stickers. And so it's hilarious to watch because I have no dog in the race this go around at all. I don't think either one is fit for office. So this is my way of upsetting both parties. Not intentionally. That's just how I feel. And they're proving me right, by the way. We'll talk about that in a second. But before we get to that, how messed up that is, Mawson's subsidiary, and soon there'll be a merger with Southern Cross Gold and Mawson, which makes all the sense. They just drilled 124.8 grams per ton gold over 3.6 meters. This is in an 80-meter step out. The numbers coming out of Sunday Creek are absolutely mind-blowing. That is a world-class deposit that will absolutely be a very profitable mine one day. I think Mawson's shares have a whole heck of a lot of upside. Our readers, were once down 50% at the beginning of this year on that position. We knew what we had. We had a sense of what we had. The drill bit has proven that, and now we're up some 240% the last time I checked on the position. that may very well turn out to go much, much higher. But again, there was a 0.7 meter intersection of 604 grams per ton gold. There's a 0.2 meter, I know it's narrow, but 0.2 meters of 1,030 grams per ton gold equivalent. I could go on and on. The numbers are nothing short of spectacular. I am looking forward to seeing some of that success duplicated with copper, gold, and silver on the check that we just wrote, Nick, and looking forward to Southern Cross and Sunday Creek and Mawson to continue to deliver. I want to remind everybody that if there is a legislative change in Sweden, that Mawson holds some very, very historically juicy uranium assets that provide humongous leverage, assets with historic resources, in the tens of millions of pounds, and exploration upside that just makes my capitalist heart smile. So if the legislation pivots the way that we see indications that it's going to pivot, Mawson not only gives you phenomenal gold exposure, it could give you some of the best uranium exposure for a gold explorer in the business. And, if you know the Mawson team, if you know Michael Hudson, he's a master at monetizing assets and spinning assets out and creating value for those assets. And I could see a day where the uranium assets are spun out into their own uranium company. I always get ahead of myself. I get it. We're not there yet. Let's cross that bridge when we get there. I could just see something like that playing out. But don't forget, you have phenomenal uranium exposure there as well.
Yeah, lots of companies with, well, maybe not lots, but a couple of companies with secret uranium deposits, and I still see uranium companies coming to list. So congrats to Mawson. Obviously, always good to see a win. Good to see the drill bit cooperate, and good to see the response in the market. So I'm not a shareholder. I haven't been involved in Mawson, but what I would say is this. We were talking earlier about how gold's in a bull market, and for a while people were lamenting, the state of the equities. And some people, I think, are still lamenting the state of the equities, but now that's become more of an excuse than reality, right? Because you were just talking about Mawson having a good response on the discovery, and I'm looking at right now a 1-year chart of gold and the GDX and the GDXJ, and they are all up. And then I'm looking at a 6-month chart of gold, the GDX and the GDXJ, and they are all up. And I'm looking at a 3-month chart of gold, GDX and GDXJ, and they are in fact all up. And so if your gold equity is not up in the 3, 6, or 1-year time frame, it has now become an excuse to say, oh, tough markets, because your benchmarks are beating you.
Yeah, let me highlight some more good work going on, man. I'm happy for Terry Lynch at Power Nickel. He's got a real discovery on his hand. His shares were some 18 cents earlier in the year. He was on Resource Stock Digest, a paying sponsor, and was banging the table about the opportunity and how special he thought, the land package was. And here he is now, several months later, doing a $20 million flow-through financing at 125. To go from 18 cents to raising 20 million at $1.25 on a flow-through status, absolutely deserves some recognition. Have all the time in the world for Terry and the team. He's always been more than generous with his time. Always a champion of the sector. High risk, high reward. Things don't always work out. He's stuck with this one, and he's been really, really, really adamant about how special his deposit is. So kudos to him. Discoveries are being rewarded in this market. I say this to not just speculators and investors, but to newsletter writers. There's a lot of great work going on. We highlighted Bravo last week. That keeps running. If you don't see that chart going to new all-time highs in the next couple of weeks, I can't help you, right? We were talking about it when it was at $1.50, when we were telling you how special Luanga was and how they were chasing the feeder zones. And yes, we end up hitting a lottery ticket with the copper stuff and the copper gold stuff, but all the other stuff still remains true. Lots of upside there. The last company I want to highlight is Gold Mining Inc. They had some news saying they have 70 kilometers of prospective trend in 3 corridors on its Rhea uranium project in western Athabasca Basin. Also,
I was going to say, speaking of gold companies with uranium assets.
Right, that was the segue, right? Speaking of teams that know how to spin out assets and create shareholder value, you do it as well as the guys and the ladies at gold mining. Would not surprise me to see that asset monetized and spun out. So that is your happy, congratulatory part of the podcast, folks. I think you got a good market recap. I think you guys know how we feel about commodities. I think you guys know how we feel about the overall markets. We are in an election year, and it doesn't seem like it, but we're only months away from this damn election, Nick. And oh, Joe Biden, did you see him at the G7 meeting?
I saw him. I don't know what's going on at the G7, but I saw him thoroughly enjoying the fireworks or whatever was going on.
That wasn't even the worst part. That one was funny because somebody put a meme, and he's just kind of sitting there just dozing on whatever they have him on, and the internet's undefeated, right? Somebody put a meme up with flashing lights in the background and darkened the room and said, Joe at his first Atlanta strip club, right? And it was great. It was hilarious. But then the following day, they're taking a picture. These are the leaders of the free world. They're taking a picture. And he starts wandering off just aimlessly in the opposite direction. And the Italian prime minister has to go and grab him by the wrist and just bring him on back. And he starts looking around. And I don't say this to make fun of Mr. Biden.
Giuseppe. Yeah,
I wish him all the best. I absolutely wish him all the best. But this is the Democratic candidate for the presidency of the United States, folks. Come on, man. We're not talking about like the leader of the PTA. We're not talking about the leader, the honorary chairman of the fucking Boy Scouts here. We're talking about the leader of the free world. And so my question is, Kamala doesn't come out anymore. I haven't seen her in ages. Joe clearly isn't the one making the decisions. He had one great debate, recently, and now Donald Trump wants to have him drug tested because he believes it was Adderall induced or whatever. And then on the other side, President Trump, the Trumpster, just got convicted of all 34 counts. And for you law and order people on the right, y'all are going to hate me for this too. Y'all are the law and order party is what I thought, right? He's a 34-time felon, y'all. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. I didn't convict him. Again, I had no dog in the race. What I do know is that was a jury selected by both attorneys, the prosecution and the defense, an agreed upon jury that all said, yeah, guilty as hell on all 34 counts. Whether you agree with the process or not, I don't want to argue that. I'm not a legal scholar. I'm not an attorney. I didn't put him up there. Again, no dog in the race. I just know an impartial jury of mutually selected jurors said he guilty as hell, boy. Guilty as all hell. These are the two people up for running our country and the superpower that is America for now.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what kind of turnout Mr. Kennedy gets. Me, I haven't voted for a Republican or Democratic Party candidate for president in over a decade. So I'm pretty tuned out of that bipartisan dog and pony show. And really, in the past few years, have wondered why people let themselves get so caught up in that. But I won't spend any time talking about that. Many of the Trump signs and things never went down in rural Eastern Washington. I mean,
right.
They're still up. So on the side of barns and houses, et cetera. What's interesting to me is, I don't know what's interesting. I see tidbits because you can't help but come across stuff, right? You've got a faction of the Republican Party who is saying, this guy's not fit for office. We don't want him to be our candidate. This would be like Chris Christie, like those types of people.
Oh, Ryan.
And then you've got
people that supported him. Sure.
Our attorney, right? And then you've got people who kowtow, or turn whatever turncoat, or
Benedict
come
Arnold.
Come back into the sun, right? Like I'm thinking like of Nikki Haley, right? Like the dude stands up there and condemns your husband and says you're dumb and all this sort of stuff, and you don't endorse him when you end your campaign, but a couple of weeks later you come out and endorse him, right? So there's like that disingenuousness, like the Ramaswamis or like all that sort of stuff. And then there's like the fans, right? Like the people, right? So, Trump gets convicted by a jury of his peers, and that's a sham. That's a rigged thing. And then Hunter Biden also gets convicted, and that's also somehow a sham. And the logic is just
Like,
you lose.
Can they
you
all be
lose me.
shams?
So,
Are they all shams? Like, is one like again? And we joked about this, funny not funny. Months ago, I started this podcast one time asking, how do you like your pedophiles, Nick? Because apparently
on
some
both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, right. Because apparently some from one side, like you can turn a blind eye to, and the other ones from the other side should be hung. And anybody that knows Nick or myself, equal opportunity hanging on the pedophiles. Like, let me make zero qualms about that to anybody that thinks there's a gray area on that for me. It's just interesting times, and again, I actually do believe this is a consequential election. I actually do believe that we're at a cross points in our country where both parties are just power hungry. I have Nancy Pelosi trading her fucking ass off. That girl is amazing. Like, she's made something like $300 million in the last couple of years. Do y'all really think she's that great of a trader? I'm asking simple questions because I'm a simple guy. Or do we think she might have some insight as, the sitting most powerful Democrat in the country, next to President Biden, arguably, might have some insight into legislation that's coming down that might be beneficial to her investments?
Yeah, I mean, they've gotten damn good at kicking the can down the road, right? I mean, we've talked about the fourth turning for years, and the date for that even has been delayed. And so, you look at the debt and you look at the interest and you look at, whatever else, the corruption, the lobbyists, the pork, all the stuff, right? And the revolving door, like stuff that's been going on for a decade now. And at some point it's going to break. Unfortunately, you can't say when that point is going to be or what the catalyst is going to be for that change, right? It's hard to predict when the guillotines are going to come out or how long the breaded circuses can last. And so we prepare for that, I think, as an ultimate outcome. And I don't think it's going to be this year. I mean, look, neither of these two guys, whoever wins, isn't going to, that's not the fucking guy on the white knight, right? I mean, on the horse, the white horse that's riding in the same shit. I mean, it's neither Trump nor Biden. So, I mean, I see you in, 2028. So, I don't have a lot. And at the same time, those problems are going to continue to fester, right? Until they, implode like a bridge in the Baltimore Harbor. And so at some point, like, something's going to happen. And then you'll see the solutions, right? Like, the solutions are easy. Like, it's fucking direct democracy. Like, I can wire tens of thousands of dollars to a Canadian firm in 2 days. Like, why can't we get the budget on the blockchain? Like, anyway, you'll see vast changes and stuff when things come as far as transparency and accountability and term limits, but not until either a war or financial crisis makes it such that there's no other option. And until then, they're going to squirm and they're going to trade and they're going to kick those cans as far down the alley as they can.
I'm glad you can do all that, Nick, because at Wells Fargo, I still can't move more than $5,000 without verifying my fucking identity. This has gone on for a year and a half now. I have the little listen, and I'm not being braggadocious here. I have the little high net worth chip for like when you have a certain amount in the account. And so that you enter your code, it changes every 60 seconds, so you can't be fraudulent about it. And even with this stupid little chip, I still am not able to transfer funds between our business and personal accounts at a clip that is respectable. Mind you, our CFO and my business partner and colleague, Niraj, have zero problem doing it. I got to go into the branch to verify my identity every time.
Dude, Wells Fargo has issues. They sent me a second little important person.
Me too. I got you.
So, and I don't even know why or what that's for, because my first one still works for all our accounts, but has always been problems with Wells Fargo. And the reason, this is sort of like the government, right? The reason we put up with them and continue to bank with them is because of inertia and because of, their ubiquity. So, I'm in Washington, you're in Texas, our CFO is in Pennsylvania. I can go to a Wells Fargo branch, you can go to a Wells Fargo branch, he can go to a Wells Fargo branch. We can't use Podunk Credit Union here in Spokane or Podunk Credit Union in Austin, Texas, right? So, and that's why they're allowed to get away with stuff, right? For well, me and banks forever, right? I mean, LIBOR and securitized debts and mortgage-backed securities and bailouts and, in the case of Wells Fargo, opening up, tens of thousands of fake accounts for our clients. Like, I mean, come on, that's like the same stuff as the government. And that's what I mean. Like the size, too big to fail, et cetera, until it's not. And I don't know where I was going with that in the case of Wells Fargo, but
that the institutions in our country are the problem.
Well,
it's not just the banking institutions or the political institutions. It's all of the institutions that have been allowed to monopolize the process, y'all.
And there are easy solutions. Why can't I log into the IRS with my fucking Google account, but I can't log into Wells Fargo? Like, come on, man.
Simple questions from a simple guy. It's all I ask. I'm supposed to remind you all every time to go to dailyprofitcycle.com/subscribe so you can get all of my simple questions and all of the insights from Mr. Hodge and our talented group of editors. You had a comment and an opinion, Mr. Hodge. So that's what it looked like.
I want to tell you a quick story.
I love stories. It doesn't even have to be quick.
I know, and we're not to 40 minutes, so I'll just take up 2 minutes because I haven't seen it nationwide. Google this story in Idaho about this escaped inmate and his brazen escaped and recapture. It's a tragic story because they ended up killing somebody, but basically the skinhead is in jail. And Idaho is a wild place, man. The skinhead is in jail. He, I guess, coordinates this escape attempt, so he fakes some medical condition to get transported to the hospital, right? During the transport, somebody pulls up, starts blasting at the transport, right? And the dude's able to run away. His accomplice picks him up. They go on the run, steal a car, murder a dude, like an 83-year-old guy, which is tragic, obviously. Take his car, and then ultimately they're able to get recaptured. But if you look at the pictures of these guys, I mean, it stopped me while I was scrolling the other day, and then I read, and I was just thinking to myself, like, remember where the guy escaped Philadelphia last year or whenever that was, and that was in the news for days. We were talking about that on the podcast. I didn't see anything about this, maybe because they were recaptured so quickly, but I was thinking, man, it's 2024 and we're having shootouts, escaping prisons and stuff, man. I just thought that would get more traction. So anyway, if you're interested in that sort of stuff, wow, it was still wild. It's interesting times. I'm thankful to have a country house that is somewhat secluded and it's got some good privacy measures in place, lots of protective measures in place. You can read between the lines there. I'm glad to have a place to be able to go to that provides those luxuries. Well, that's the thing. This is in rural Idaho, so this is in Nez Perce County. I mean, this is like 2 hours north of Midas, for example. It's right? That's why I was like, what?
And where I was going is buckle up, folks, because it's the car is swerving all over the place and drives itself, and it's a hot mess out there. Anyhow, what are you watching for this week, Nick?
So 2 things. I knew you were going to ask me, and I prepared. Oil is interesting to me. I mentioned it a little bit last week. That's a big global commodity, fungible, used by a lot of people. And it's broken down a little bit. So it's interesting to watch that in terms of, where the market's going. It's sort of meandering right now. So that's the reason I'm watching it. And the other thing is I'll be watching the Yukon because that's where I'll be next week, going on that Invest Yukon tour that they have every year. And we'll get a chance to see a couple of mines, and they have like a meet and greet little mini conference type deals. So excited to be there, and you'll have to go it alone next week.
Like it. I am most definitely going to be watching for more results from Bravo, Southern Cross Gold, Patriot Battery Metals. And look, I mean, the bottom line is they keep delivering. I know the market's not showing Patriot a lot of love right now. It'll happen when it happens. The re-rating is going to happen. We said it with Bravo, with tier 1 deposits or tier 1 deposits. When you get into multiple high-grade zones and multiple discoveries, the market will catch it when the market catches it. I think it should be another fun week or two. I hope everybody has a safe week, a fun week. I hope you all stay healthy, given the nature of all the bugs and viruses that are going around, and take care of each other. Get outside, make it count, folks. That's all we got this week. I am Gerardo Del Real, along with Mr. Nick Hodge. This was the 274th episode of our weekly therapy session called Investing in Bizarro World. Before I let you go, I got to remind everybody, I think it's a good thing Elon Musk got his $65 billion back and is now incorporating in the state of Texas, because he negotiated that up front. And in America, we respect the rule of law and contracts. And he performed, and he should have been allowed that compensation. It's a damn shame he even had to fight for it. However you feel about Elon. That's all I got to say. Y'all have a great week.
See ya.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.